So Vyasa, the poet, was speaking aloud his great poem of the world to Ganesha, the elephant-headed god, who was writing everything down. But Vyasa got to a place in the poem which was very bleak, for there were no children and there was no king. And so it was necessary for Vyasa to enter the story. And I did, said Vyasa. I climbed down into that poem that I was composing, for I know its hallways, I know the smell of its salty air. For you see, Satyavati was my mother. No, said Ganesha. Yes, said Vyasa, she was my mother. When she was but a young girl, one day she was working, driving that ferry across the Yamuna River there, in the kingdom of the fishermen. And on this day a seer came, a magical man, and wanted to ride across the river. As soon as he got on that ferry, she stuck her pole into the shore and pushed off, and they went gliding across the water. And he saw her and fell madly in love with her. My dear, he said, love is a flower that blossoms all too briefly. Come, let us enjoy this flower together here, now, in this moment. She laughed. You shameless sage, here on this ferry, that everyone will see. Have no fear, he said. And he waved his hand, and a cloud high in the sky descended and shrouded that ferry in fog. So, my dear, there is no trouble. Yes, but you shameless sage, the thing is I am innocent. And if we are to come together in this way, well, afterwards I will no longer be innocent. I will have to leave my father's house and go live with you. And where is that? A hut in the mountain, perhaps? It's true, he said, I live in a hut in the mountains. The wind whistles through it. It's no place for a family. So, but the thing is, you see, I possess a word of power, a mantra. And by the power of this mantra, I will make it so that you are as innocent afterwards as you are now. And what's more, I will give you a boon. Tell me, what is it that your heart most desires? And Satyavati thought, and she thought of her father's kingdom, the kingdom of the fishermen, and how it always smelled of fish. And she said, what I most desire is that my body may always smell sweet. You shall have that, the sage said, and he took her in his arms, and the air was filled with the delightful smell of roses. And when that ferry reached the other shore, the sage said goodbye to Satyavati, stepped onto the shore, and went off into the fog. And when the fog lifted, he was gone. Well, sometime after this, by magical means, Satyavati gave birth to me on an island in the river. I was born, and within 3 days I was fully grown, for I was a magical boy there of a magical man. And I said to my mother, I must leave, for my heart is set upon austerities in the mountains. I must go there to the realm of Shiva, and I must dwell with silence and the wisdom of the Vedas, which hums in the air. But, mother, do not be sad. For whenever you need me, you need simply call my name, and I will be there. Goodbye. And I vanished into the air, and my mother, Satyavati, she sat there looking at the grass where I had been walking just a moment before. And then she turned away. So, later on in our story, my mother Satyavati, she succumbed to grief. In the royal chambers, weeping, she was there. No children. What are we to do? What are we to do? And she remembered me and called out my name. And in a flash, I was there. By the flickering of the candles, I was there. By the blowing of the wind, I was there. In that room, in that palace. Mother, I said, what is it you require? How can I help? And she explained the entire situation to me. And so I agreed to do what was necessary. There were 2 princesses, one by Bhishma, Umbika and Umbalika. And I went to the first on one night. There I went to her royal bedchamber. She was sitting on the bed in her royal beautiful clothes. And I came to that room, and she looked at me, and she said, "Ah!" And she closed her eyes. For I was muddy and dirty, it was true, wearing only rags. And I took her in my arms and said, "My dear, this night you shall conceive a child by me. But this child, because you winced and closed your eyes, he shall be born blind. His name shall be Dhritarashtra." And so it was. And the next night I went to Umbalika, there in the bedroom. I went to her sitting on that bed, dressed in her beautiful clothes, and I came into the room, and she saw me and went, "Ah!" and turned pale. So I took her in my arms, and I said, "My dear, this night you shall conceive a child by me, but this child shall be pale, because you turned pale when you saw me in my disgusting rags. So this child shall be known as Pandu the Pale." And so it was, and some time later these two children were born in the kingdom, Dhritarashtra, who was blind, and Pandu the Pale, who was pale in the face. And Dhritarashtra, because he was blind, was not put on the throne, and Pandu the Pale reigned in the land of the Kurus, in the city of Hastinapura. And he ruled wisely and well, and in due time he took 2 wives, Kunti and Madri, and the people were happy. And then one day Pandu the Pale went hunting in the forest.